Broadcasting from the Symphony Studios in Marietta, Georgia, it's time for the Technology Harmony Podcast, brought to you by Symphony Technology Solutions. Tune in every week as we spotlight the very best minds in our industry. Now here are your hosts.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the 38th episode of the Technology Harmony Podcast, brought to you by Symphony Technology Solutions. I am one of your hosts today, Katie Galley, and I'm joined by my co-host, Peter Fittner. How you doing, Peter?
Doing well.
Awesome. Well, I'm super excited to dive in. We have a really great guest today with us in the Symphony studio, managing member at J&A Engineering, Jorge Gomez. How are you doing, Jorge?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for stopping by. Well, thank you. Just excited. Love doing. Well, podcasts are super fun, especially when we get to talk with really great minds like yourself, Jorge. So, Jorge, can you tell us a little bit to get us going about your professional journey and how you got the job that you have today?
J&A Engineering is a boutique low-voltage engineering design firm. We're a boutique engineering firm. We design low-voltage systems, specifically security, telecom, and audiovisual. And we're designing those systems for projects typically in excess of $10 million all over the country. We're working on stadiums and convention centers and hospitals, on higher ed projects all over. We haven't picked a niche building type, and we're working in all different buildings, which makes it super interesting. I started the company 17 and a half years ago as when at the time the company I was working for closed its doors, and when they closed its doors, they gave me an opportunity to start my own firm with not having to deal with any non-competes. So 17 and a half years ago, I was deciding whether or not to go to unemployment or look for another job or exactly what. Instead, I had two children at the time. I decided to bunk them together, took one of their bedrooms and started a company. And I was lucky enough to pick up two large clients, one being the University of Georgia and one being the Georgia Department of Juvenile Justice. And I'm proud to say 17 and a half years later, those are still two of our largest clients. We've gone to market with just trying to do the absolute best job we can, and in always telling the truth, that recognizing that everybody makes mistakes, but you admit them and you fix them immediately. We're up to 18 engineers, and we've had some really great projects. Probably the most stellar project was the new Mercedes-Benz Stadium here in the Atlanta market.
Wow. So, Jorge,
that's kind of a summary.
Yeah. So, and it's incredible. I mean, the journey you've taken, and coming on the tail end of that firm you worked for, and then deciding that you were going to, take to entrepreneurship, and you just kind of dive in all in there. So at that time, Jorge, making that decision, which is not, not for the faint of heart, right? Deciding you're going to open your own firm in that time, how did you navigate that, and how did you kind of grapple with the fear or the uncertainty that comes with opening your own business?
You know what? I have to credit my ex-wife with that. Is that at the time I had a 6-month-old and an 18-month-old, and she gave me the support I needed and said, "Hey, you can do this." And after I talked with her about it, she gave me all the support I needed to allow me to do it. And we felt like it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to try something on your own, where you're able to work with some past clients with a non-compete, since the business was no longer in the Atlanta market. So it was definitely a risk. I had a lot on my back, which frankly made me work harder. So, and then having a client like the University of Georgia and the Georgia Department of Juvenile Justice was a godsend. If you can get a client that's going to give you recurring work as big as those entities are, and that's why, although I'm a Georgia Tech grad, I think my favorite school may be the University of Georgia, because of the fact that they've been our anchor client for all 17 and a half years.
Well, Georgia Tech might take their diploma back then.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really great, Jorge. I actually don't know if I'd heard that version of your script, so I appreciate you telling us that. It's great to hear from another small business about how you kind of struck out there on your own. So we appreciate you.
You can imagine. my first purchase was to empty our savings and buy a plotter, a $5,000 plotter, and get it installed in my daughter's bedroom. We pushed the cribs into their own room together and had a plotter going in the other room and got to work. Since then, we were just able to continue.
Well, look how you guys have come. I guess, sort of pivoting off that, where do you see J&A going the next? Are you kind of just taking it day by day and serving the customers right now?
Yeah, exactly. We're going to continue to expand. Is that now that we're very established, we have fantastic relationships with architects, developers, owners all over the country. We're able to have the opportunities for more work without a lot of the luck needed to get into some of these opportunities. So we intend to expand. We continue to have more projects. Our healthcare group is going extremely well. Our audiovisual group is going extremely well. We're in this time of COVID, we hired a new engineer, and he is starting right after the first of the year. So, and the opportunities and the projects continue to come. So we're going to work hard, and everybody still has a fire in their belly. So we just have had good support from the team. They're respecting the whole COVID process, and things are going very well.
Yeah, from what I've seen, you got a great team over there for sure.
So George, I mean, you touched on, seeing where J&A is going, and I mean, based upon, where you started too. So could you have anticipated, I guess, did you know when you began J&A engineering that the path that you wanted it to take, or does it look very different than it did when you first began?
No, it looks the same, with the exception of I was hoping that one of my daughters would become an engineer. I have two daughters, and one's going for medical school and one's going for a law degree. So neither of them want to come anywhere near J&A engineering. But it's going exactly as I planned. Is that unfortunately, or fortunately, working as an engineer, I've been very cautious in expansion. So we're very proud to say in 17 and a half years, we've never laid off a single employee. So, and that's because our growth has been very cautious. So we're up to 18 employees now, and we only hire when we have enough of a workload to support those employees, even if we had a downturn in the market. So right now we have some senior members in all the disciplines, in all the market groups. So it's been very good. So I'm able to work on the projects that I enjoy, and we have others that work on the projects that they enjoy. So it looks like we're set for the next 10 years with this group and the way we've been able to establish really good relationships.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure that keeps you guys busy since you're, hesitant to add staff. So you guys are, probably overworked at points and times, but you make it work.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. But yeah, and I'm cognizant of that, because the last thing I want is somebody to be working in the office 70 hours, 70, 80 hours a week, every week. We all have to deal with deadlines, and we know that if this isn't a classical 8 to 5 job, but I don't think that we work as hard as CPAs at tax time, for example. My brother's a CPA, and I hear stories of all-nighters, and I'm hoping that I don't think anybody's seen an all-nighter here at J&A Engineering.
Well, it looks like you work as hard as your team as well, like you're always in the office, so that kind of helps too, setting the tone.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
Do you want to talk a little bit about what kind of customers or what kind of customer type you work with? I know obviously you work with some end users, like UGA, and then do you contract directly with architects ever, or is it typically with end users?
Yeah, as a boutique consulting firm, we have a whole spread of clients, and they start at even from the developer standpoint. We've been working with a lot of developers that are developing multifamily and student housing projects all over the country, so they're carrying us all over the place. We also work with end users like a University of Georgia or Georgia Department of Juvenile Justice when the project is specific just to include low voltage systems. So usually if the University of Georgia or Georgia Tech is building a new building, they will contract with an architect, and then hopefully pass our name to the architect to be one of the sub-consultants. We also work mostly with architects. So once those architects start a new building, a new project, they'll reach out to us and include us as a sub-consultant. And then all the way down to even the electrical engineers. If the electrical engineers, and sometimes they'll go ahead and be asked to provide the services for all the low voltage systems, and then they'll reach out to us to provide audiovisual security and the telecom scope as well. And then sometimes even life safety systems like fire alarm, distributed antenna, and emergency responder.
Yeah, it's an interesting ecosystem for sure. It can play out in different ways. We see that as well.
So George, can you share a little bit? You touched on some major projects that you guys have taken a hand in and completed. Can you maybe speak to with those success stories, what attributed or contributed to the success from J&A's side into those major projects? Like, what are you guys doing correctly? What are you doing right?
I think that what we're doing is that we're not overburdening ourselves, because with these larger projects, you just need to stay up to date with all the project documentation, meet all the deadlines, service the project all the way through. Because you can imagine if you get behind, it can cascade into just very poor performance. So what we have to do is we need to make sure we staff those. So when we landed the Falcon Stadium project, we had a team of around 5 people that were dedicated to that project. So I even had to staff up, and we're given the opportunity to provide engineering services on site, and we took that opportunity just to make sure that we were able to respond to all the construction questions that came up in a real-time basis. So depending on the project size, but for the big ones, you need to do that, and we're still doing that, and we're also not hesitant to provide all of our contact information so that we can be contacted at any time. And it's not odd for me to get a call on Friday night, or definitely a Saturday and Sunday, to deal with an issue. One of the neat projects we've had is that we've started to roll out video surveillance at stadiums around. We many years ago rolled out video surveillance throughout the University of Georgia Sanford Stadium. We did it at Mercedes-Benz. Now we're working at the New Orleans Saints Stadium with WHW. And recently, Georgia State University just rolled out at the old Turner Field, which has been renamed as the Georgia State Stadium, and the name escapes me. But those systems, a Saturday morning comes along, there's a football game, something's not working, then you want to talk to somebody right away, and you got to be able to staff that call. So we just make ourselves available, and that's a little bit of a recipe for success.
We're certainly familiar with that as the integrator, so it's interesting how that kind of that leaks down to you guys as the design firm as well. That kind of need to be on call and deal with technology issues. Could you tell us maybe a little bit, I guess, about are you seeing maybe the technologies that you're seeing out there?
Just depending on the environment and the climate, technologies change, and it's been exciting. And now we're seeing a lot of requests for touchless applications. So we're seeing access control systems that are more, all of the access control systems these days are Bluetooth based, so that you can control lock sets through your smart device, and also use facial recognition, and then interface them with doors that have automatic openers and such. And we're seeing clients kind of move in that direction. But biometric technology on the access control front is pretty interesting. On the telecom side, we're seeing higher and higher, more and more Wi-Fi as opposed to hardwired data requirements. So it's an exciting time where in the olden days we would run 2 ports to the pillow and a TV outlet to every student room. These days, sometimes we're not doing any cabling to the student room with the exception of just a Wi-Fi access point location. So it's really interesting now where everything's becoming more Wi-Fi based. And then on the audio visual side, not necessarily my specialty, just some really interesting things are happening. And we're doing video walls and curved monitors. It's just a really neat time right now.
And George, I mean, you spoke to, I mean, the kind of the advent of technology and staying ahead of it. And of course, too, in the last couple of months, how that has been catalyzed, it seems, because, technology has always been there, but certain aspects of it have been moved forward at a more rapid pace because of COVID. But looking forward, how does J&A kind of stay abreast with that? So not, of course, being able to fully know what technologies are going to be needed in a year or 5 years, but how do you guys kind of stay ahead of the trend to maybe anticipate what might be needed next?
Pre-COVID, we were attending all the technology conferences. We were welcoming manufacturers to come in for lunch and learns and expose us to the technology because they're in the interest of getting it out there as well. Now that we're in this COVID time, we're not going to the conferences yet because we're looking forward to going again. But we are still welcoming the manufacturers, and the manufacturers have changed their go-to business. And what they'll still do is they still want to get in front of us. So what we're doing as a group is in our offices, we can attend Zoom calls with the manufacturers. And they structure them in the form of a lunch and learn. So in most cases, they sponsor lunch. We do it during the lunch hour to maximize our opportunities to work on our projects. Staff it during lunch hour. We give them that 11:30 to 1:30 slot, and they tell us about all the different technologies that they're rolling out. So we've tried to cap it at twice a week because now that we've let the industry know that we're looking forward to having that opportunity, we're getting a lot of interest, and I think we have at least 2 of them. We have 2 this week as well.
Wow.
So did they actually order you guys lunch to make it as close as possible?
They do. Yeah, it's because since we're machines, we still have to feed ourselves. So and then that just gives us an opportunity to still meet our project deadlines and still get fed and learn during that period. And we have a great team here. They're thirsty for it. So we take advantage of it all the time.
It's really interesting as far as Katie brought up future technologies, and I do feel like it's a little bit difficult to truly future-proof any development going up, but you can certainly propose, open platforms and software that's more malleable and can handle more applications in the future. But it's really hard to tell what's going to be coming down the next 2 years. Have you kind of seen that same thing?
Oh, absolutely. Because especially I know the projects that you work on, Peter, a lot of them go PON, and PON is still, you can make the argument that it's somewhat proprietary, but in the standard Ethernet projects that we have, we try to prep them for the future whenever we can. And what we end up doing is we ended up having cabling systems that will support future data speeds beyond what we're doing right now. On the security side, we try to go with open architecture products that won't lock an owner into one manufacturer, and would allow them just with a software change, move to a different manufacturer if the first manufacturer is no longer able to provide the required level of service. And I believe it's that same route from the audiovisual side. I'd have to let them comment on that.
Sure.
Well, Peter, do you have any closing questions for George before we wrap?
No, we talk a lot, George, but I got to hear some kind of news about your journey and what you guys are working on, so that was good. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
And I appreciate this opportunity. This has really been a neat experience.
Well, thanks, George.
Awesome.
And if someone else tuning in wanted to learn more about you, learn more about J&A, where might they do that?
Yeah, they can always see all of our information is on our website at jaengineering.net. And that's jaengineering.net. And I'm George Gomez, but I spell my name with a J, Jorge, last name Gomez. And you can find all my email addresses and cell phone numbers and office numbers on the website. And you'll also be able to see the types of projects we've worked on.
Thank you all for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. To learn more about our guest and their company, check out the show notes for the relevant links. If you would like to learn more about us here at Symphony, Of course, subscribe to our podcast on our YouTube channel. And don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn and Facebook at Symphony Technology Solutions and on Instagram at Symphony Tech Solutions. Here at Symphony, our ultimate goal is to make harmonious music out of all the technological noise. And we hope today's episode helped in doing just that. See you next time.